Some people carry their suffering like a ghost. You can't see it. You can't touch it. But you can feel it in the way they hold themselves. In the silence that follows their words. In the distance behind their eyes. Carl Jung believed that deep suffering doesn't just wound you. It rewrites you. It changes how your soul moves through the world. Today, I'm revealing 5 signs that your soul has endured too much. Signs most people never recognize until they see themselves in the mirror. If you've been through hell and lived to tell about it, this will make sense. Let me tell you something about suffering that most people don't understand. It doesn't just hurt you and then disappear. It stays. It burrows into your psyche. It changes the architecture of your soul. Jung spent decades studying what happens to people who endure profound pain. And he discovered that suffering leaves specific marks, not visible ones, psychological ones. Patterns that show up in how you think, feel, and relate to the world. These aren't weaknesses. They're adaptations. Your psyche's attempt to protect you from ever being hurt. That deeply again. But like all protection, they come at a cost. Today, I'm going to show you 5 signs that your soul has been through too much. As I describe each one, pay attention to what stirs in you. Because recognition is the first step toward understanding. And understanding is the first step toward healing. Let's begin. Sign 1, you can't enjoy good things anymore. Here's the first sign your soul has been through too much. When something good happens, you can't let yourself feel it.
Not fully.
Not without fear. Someone loves you. You wait for them to leave. You get a win at work. You wait for it to be taken away. Life gives you a moment of peace. You can't relax into it because you're already bracing for what comes next. This isn't pessimism. This is survival. Jung would call it a defense mechanism. Your psyche learned that good things don't last. That joy is temporary. That every high is followed by a crash. So you stopped letting yourself climb. Because if you don't go up, you can't fall down. If you don't hope, you can't be disappointed. If you don't love fully, you can't be destroyed completely. But here's what this really is. It's your soul protecting itself by staying numb, by refusing to feel joy because joy has always preceded pain. And at some point, you decided that the cost of hoping was too high. Think about what this means. You're not living, you're surviving. Even when the danger has passed, even when life is finally offering you something real, you can't receive it. Because your soul is still locked in the moment when everything fell apart. This is what deep suffering does. It doesn't just take away your happiness. It takes away your capacity to believe in happiness, to trust it, to let yourself have it without waiting for the other shoe to drop. And the cruelest part, you might not even realize you're doing it. It feels like realism, like wisdom, like you've just learned how the world works. But it's not wisdom. It's a wound that never healed. A scar tissue that's grown so thick you've mistaken it for your actual self. Sign 2, you feel safest when you're alone. The second sign your soul has endured too much is this. You've learned that people are dangerous. Not consciously, not in a way you'd admit out loud, but deep down in the part of you that remembers being hurt. You know, connection costs, intimacy wounds. People leave, so you withdrew. Not dramatically, quietly. You stopped reaching out, stopped sharing the real you, stopped letting people see your struggles because showing vulnerability only ever led to more pain. Jung called this the armor of solitude. And it makes perfect sense. When relationships have betrayed you, abandoned you, or weaponized your trust, isolation becomes safety. Walls become comfort. Being alone becomes the only place where you don't have to perform, explain, or risk being hurt again. But here's the trap. The isolation that protects you also empties you. You're safe, yes, but you're also slowly disappearing. Because humans aren't meant to carry their pain alone. We're relational beings. And when we cut ourselves off from connection, we cut ourselves off from the very thing that could help us. Heal. You might tell yourself you're fine, that you prefer solitude, that people are exhausting and you're better off alone. And maybe that's partially true. But underneath there's something else. Fear. The fear that if you let someone in, they'll do what everyone else did. See your wounds, judge them, use them against you, leave. So you stay behind your walls, protected but isolated, safe but lonely, convinced that this is better than risking connection again. Jung would say you're living in your shadow, the part of you that's so hurt it can't imagine trust anymore. The part that's decided isolation is strength when it's actually resignation. And the saddest part, you might be surrounded by people who would love you if you let them. But your soul is so scarred that you can't recognize safe people anymore. Everyone looks like a threat. Every offer of connection feels like a trap. This is what suffering does. It doesn't just teach you caution. It teaches you to mistake walls for wisdom, isolation for independence, loneliness for safety. If this is resonating, subscribe. This journey continues. Sign 3, you apologize for existing. The third sign your soul has been through too much is subtle. So subtle you might not even notice you're doing it. You apologize constantly, not just for mistakes, for existing. Sorry for bothering you. Sorry for taking up space. Sorry for needing anything. Sorry for having feelings. On the surface, this looks like politeness, consideration, good manners. But Jung would see something else. He'd see someone whose sense of worth was shattered so deeply that they now believe their very existence is an imposition. This happens when suffering comes with blame, when you were made to feel that your pain was your fault, that your needs were too much, that expressing hurt made you difficult, dramatic, a burden. So you learned to shrink, to minimize, to apologize for taking up space because somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that you were the problem, not what happened to you. And now, even in moments where you have every right to exist fully, you can't. You apologize for speaking, for having opinions, for wanting things, for feeling things, as if your humanity itself is something you need permission for. Jung called this the wounded ego, the part of you that's internalized the message that you're fundamentally too much or not enough. And now you move through the world trying to make yourself smaller, quieter, less visible, hoping that if you're small enough, maybe you won't be hurt again. But here's the truth. You don't need to apologize for being human, for having needs, for taking up space. The people who made you feel that way were wrong, not you. Yet your soul doesn't believe that, because when suffering is paired with shame, the wound goes so deep that even when the person who hurt you is gone, their voice remains inside you, telling you you're too much, not enough, a burden. This is what profound suffering does. It doesn't just hurt you, it convinces you that you deserved it. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to prove you're worthy of existing, apologizing for the space you take up, for the air you breathe, for being alive. Sign 4, you can't trust your own judgment anymore. The fourth sign your soul has endured too much is this. You second-guess everything, not because you're indecisive, but because your reality was shattered so completely that you no longer trust your own perception. Maybe someone gaslit you, told you your feelings weren't real, that your memories were wrong, that you were overreacting, being too sensitive, imagining things. And you believed them, not because you were weak, but because they were convincing, and they had power over you. Or maybe your suffering came from trusting the wrong person, someone who seemed safe but wasn't, someone you loved who destroyed you. And now every instinct feels suspect. Every judgment feels unreliable, because the last time you trusted yourself, you got it catastrophically wrong. Jung would call this the fragmentation of the self. When your inner knowing is repeatedly invalidated, you lose faith in it. You stop trusting your gut, your intuition, your sense of right and wrong, because those things failed you once, and you can't risk them failing you again. So now you overthink everything. You ask for constant reassurance. You can't make decisions without external validation. You defer to others because their judgment seems more reliable than your own. And here's the cruelest part. This makes you vulnerable to being manipulated again. Because when you can't trust yourself, you become dependent on others to tell you what's real. And not everyone has good intentions. This is what deep betrayal does. It doesn't just hurt you. It severs your connection to your own inner truth. And then you spend years trying to figure out what's real, what you can trust, who you can believe, including yourself. Sign 5, you've stopped planning for the future. The fifth and final sign, your soul has been through too much, is this. You can't imagine a future anymore. Not because you're depressed, but because your psyche has learned that planning is pointless. Hope is dangerous. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. When you've lost everything you thought was permanent, when the future you envisioned was ripped away, your brain stops projecting forward. It stays in the present. Not in a mindful Zen way, in a survival way. Because looking ahead only reminds you of what you lost, what could have been, what will never be. So you stop making plans, stop setting goals, stop dreaming. Not consciously, but your soul has quietly given up on the idea that life gets better, that things work out, that there's something worth building toward. Jung would call this the collapse of the transcendent function, the part of the psyche that connects present to future, past to potential. When that function breaks, you become stuck in an eternal now, not present. Stuck. You go through the motions. You do what's necessary. But there's no vision, no hope, no sense that your life is moving towards something meaningful. Because the last time you had a vision, it shattered. The last time you hoped, you were crushed. So you stopped hoping. Because hope, you learned, is just pre-disappointment. Planning is setting yourself up for failure. Dreaming is dangerous. This is what profound loss does. It doesn't just take away your future. It takes away your ability to imagine one, to believe in one, to invest in one, and then you live day to day, not building, not growing, just surviving, waiting for nothing, because expecting anything feels like inviting pain. If you recognized yourself in these 5 signs, you already know your soul has been through too much, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, persistent, soul-eroding way, the kind of suffering that doesn't make headlines but rewrites who you are. You can't enjoy good things. You feel safest alone. You apologize for existing. You can't trust your own judgment. You've stopped planning for the future. These aren't character flaws. They're survival strategies. Your psyche's desperate attempt to protect you from ever being hurt that deeply again. But Jung would remind you of something important. What protects you can also imprison you. The walls that keep pain out also keep life out. The numbness that prevents suffering also prevents joy. The isolation that feels safe also prevents healing. The resignation that protects you from disappointment also prevents growth. So here's the question Jung would ask. How long will you let your past dictate your present? How long will you let old wounds determine who you're allowed to become? Because here's the truth. Your suffering was real. Your pain was valid. The things that happened to you should never have happened. But you're still here. And being here means you have a choice. Not about what happened, but about what happens next. You can stay behind the walls. Stay numb. Stay small. Stay resigned. That's one choice. And no one would blame you for it. Suffering earns you the right to protect yourself. Or you can do something harder. You can acknowledge that your soul has been through too much, and decide that too much doesn't have to mean forever. That survival mode doesn't have to be permanent. That the way you've learned to protect yourself might not be the way you want to live. Jung spent his life teaching that the unconscious wounds we carry don't heal by being ignored. They heal by being brought into consciousness, by being seen, named, understood, integrated. Your soul has been through too much, but it's still your soul. And it's not broken beyond repair. It's just been protecting itself the only way it knew how. By shutting down, by closing off, by staying small. But maybe it's time to stop protecting and start healing. Not because you have to, but because you deserve to live fully. Not just survive, actually live. If you're ready to explore how Jung's psychology can help you understand and integrate your wounds, subscribe to this channel. This work doesn't end here. And remember, you've suffered too much, but suffering doesn't get to write the end of your story. You do.